let's see. Then there was the time that Darcy Gordon decided to become the prankster of all pranksters, and got us all involved in putting a whoopee cushion in underneath the cushion of our teacher's seat or chair. That's not like some huge thing, but Darcy did kind of have this prankster side to her, and admittedly, like none of us tried to not go along with that. And at one point, I remember, Darcy got us all, the entire class, to hide outside the door of our classroom. Um, and the way the buildings were set up, like, there was no way our teacher was going to come into the classroom and know that we were like in back of the classroom hiding. So yeah, Darcy started that too, but that was kind of fun. Like, no hard feelings on that. No hard feelings on the whoopee cushion either. Oh yeah, years and years and years ago. And then there was good old Lillian Carmichael, which, like, I can't blame Lillian for being the way she was, because there were some people that were just really, 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 really mean unnecessarily to her. But so yeah, third, fourth grade teacher, Miss Adams, she attended UC Berkeley. And once a year, the students would redecorate her room with Stanford stuff, like during the football game between Stanford and UC Berkeley. And so the year that I had her as a teacher, it was Erica Svedman and I that got that honor of redecorating the room with Stanford stuff. So, like Erica Svedman and I, and then Lori Hollenbeck and I were the ones grading papers like during lunch and like recess and stuff. And so it made sense that we were in the classroom during lunch, but Lillian came in and saw us, redecorating the room, and went to Mrs. Carpenter, the secretary of the school at the time, whose grandson, Mike Foster, ended up being there in like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade or something like that. But anyway, so Lillian went to Mrs. Carter, and Mrs. Carter came over the intercom and was like, "Oh, are you two up to something you shouldn't be up to?" Of course, Erica and I were going to be like, "No, we're not up to anything." And so that's what we said. And of course, we continued decorating the room with Stanford stuff, and nothing happened. It was a yearly deal with every class with Miss Adams. It wasn't something that she did not expect. She expected it every year, and she always was a good, what's the word I'm looking for? She was like, she didn't hold grudges about it. She wasn't nasty about it. She just had a good attitude about it. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh yeah, so yes, I did spend quite a bit of time over at Larry Cincini's house of Wilson, Cincini, Goodrich, and Rosati. His now passed away wife, Barbara, and my mom played tennis together, so I was at their Los Altos Hills home a lot. And I really got the sense that Barbara didn't care for me too much and thought I was going to be a problem because I'm pretty democratic. Even back when I was a kid, I was pretty democratic, like as opposed to Republican. And I really got the sense that Barbara thought that was going to be a problem. And I picked up on the fact, or it felt pretty likely to me, that she was pretty racist, and so was Larry. They didn't really come out and say it, but like it was roundabout. But it was definitely in the air and definitely like alluded to and implied. And it wasn't until, I'm going to say, the age of 22 or so that I found out that Mark Flomenhoft sat on boards with Larry Cincini. So Mark Flomenhoft was the co-founder of Cadence, basically, Design Systems. And Kim Flomenhoft, I thought, was a friend of mine. We met in 5th grade at Springer Elementary School, 1120 Rose Avenue, Mountain View, California. I'm not sure where they came from. I'm guessing like North Carolina or Florida or something. But she came to Springer Elementary in 5th grade, and I ended up spending quite a bit of time over at their house before they moved back to North Carolina and then came back to California and moved into their home in Los Gatos. But yeah, I'd spend like 4 days a week at their house sometimes, and I went to their summer home in Calaveras County with them. And I don't know how long I spent there with them, but it had to be at least a week, maybe a month. And it seemed like fun times. I mean, her stepbrother, Kim's stepbrother, Linda's son, was there. And at one point, like, I developed a little bit of a prankster in me by that point. We short sheeted his bed when he was out, cruising or whatever. And we took whatever was in his toothpaste and substituted something else like flour or something into his toothpaste, and then we like put grapes underneath the doormats outside the front and back doors of their summer home or whatever, and then we put like toothpaste or something on the door handles of the doors and just had a good old time. And Linda was part of it. It was Linda, Kim, and I. We were all a part of that. And, we waited until he came in and discovered all these weird things going on and had a good laugh about it. Yeah. And then Kim and I went to a Ziggy Marley concert together in San Francisco, even though I told my parents that, I was just spending the night at her house, at her parents' house on a school night, I think. And I definitely went to Castellia with her a few times. Castellia all-girls school, because either in 7th or 8th grade, Kim had enough of the bullying, or that's what she told her dad, and so they decided she was going to go to the all-girls school, and at that time it was like $25,000 per year. And I remember them having screaming matches about the cost of Castellia, but she ended up there. And I met one of the models that was on like the cover of 17 and stuff, which was a big deal when we were in elementary and junior high school and stuff. And that girl, I can't think of her name right now, but I think she's Russian American or something, or Ukrainian American. But she was actually really nice. And when I met her, at least the first time, she was coming down the stairs at Castellia. I remember that. Yeah, and then at some point after high school, Kim, Michelle, and I, another friend of ours, at that time, or I thought we were all friends, went skiing together in Lake Tahoe, and Kim drove. And when we got there, we were staying at a bed and breakfast, and originally, Kim and Michelle were at each other's throats. And like back then, I was the peacekeeper for everybody, not just them, but for everybody, including my family. So I managed to get them to make friends again. And we ended up skiing. And at some point, I remember wherever we were skiing, like Kim and Michelle had gotten on the ski lift together, and they got down together. And then when it was my turn to get down the slope, by that time it had turned ice, just literal ice. And like I had to slide down all the way on my rear end. And I think that was like an intermediate slope, or maybe an advanced intermediate, I don't know. But Michelle, at that point, I don't think she was skiing. I don't think she'd ever skied. She was always on her snowboard. And they laughed their behinds off at me. Michelle and Kim, they were having a good old laugh at me, you know, having to slide down on the ice on my behind. Where am I on this video? Okay, so time for the next one.